Welcome to the Bitcoin Builders space.
Jam
What
Bunzy.
is good, farmer?
Things are all right. It feels like we had massive capitulation across the board. ETH just repricing to where it actually should be at 2000. ETH BTC ratio is actually, I think it's at its all time low, if I'm not mistaken, or reached its like all time low of 0.02. Um, just unprecedented, but not necessarily surprising for a lot of people. And then I guess we had some like good news come out to save our bags and get us to it's all back rather than it's all over state. One, we had a massive announcement saying that like the digital assets bill, I think is, or at least some U.S. Politics positioning and posturing around crypto are supposed to be announced today. And then finally, I think we have I've been seeing this date for the last 4 months. Everyone's just like, FTX distributions are coming, FTX distributions are coming. But they actually just announced that FTX distributions are coming February 18th, if I'm not mistaken.
15th, I
And
thought I
that is,
saw, but it's a couple weeks.
yeah, so it's a couple weeks away. And that is, I think, $18 billion injected into the crypto ecosystem. So look, it's going to be interesting, and we got businessman here. I know he's been a long time lurker, but I don't know if this is the real businessman. Is this the real businessman? It's the community hasn't heard from you in a while, even though you've been very vocal on your Twitter, and more recently you've been looking quite extensively in like the Barachain ecosystem, from what I see.
Absolutely. What's up, Farmer, Bunzy, Matt from Arch? Good to see people in the audience.
Can confirm it's
We can
businessman, dude.
confirm. Yep, it's
Damn, the
verified.
real business. I think the era of Bitcoin meme coins is back. The fact that like we can launch anything now in a quote unquote L2 solution or app chain solution is really slick. Obviously, saving Bitcoin block space to only write these tokens when they ascend or graduate at 100K market cap makes a ton of sense. And we're starting to posture here that runes tickers are just no different than contract addresses at the end of the day. And I think that's actually not dissimilar to how we have ordinals, right? Le Puppeteer actually brought up a really good point where ordinals don't really have more data than the actual ordinal artwork itself. It doesn't have a collection detail, it doesn't have the size or parent child, at least originally, that some collections are leaning towards that. And so, unless you actually have off chain data to index the validity of these tokens, or rather these NFTs, then you don't really know if the artwork belongs in the collection itself. And so, if we just use Bitcoin runes as contract addresses, then we go in a similar way where the token itself as a fungible is L1 compatible with anything that comes about from it, all while being massively fungible and quick on layer two type solutions. Obviously, the Token Fund is a really good exercise of that. It certainly has been very fun for people. Tokens are most definitely going up, but they're going down just as quickly as they're going up. And yesterday, I think it was Naver from Taproot Alpha. He announced his token creation arc. He ended up launching this token called Snorky. The market front ran him, I think, 7 to 9 times, starting the same token as Snarf. And so you had Snarf by Naver rug once, and then you had Snarf 2.0 rug, and then you had Snarf 3.0 rug, and then there was probably like 5 or 6 others that ended up rugging. So, Charfu was up here last week and saying we need to get rugs on Bitcoin. And look, I guess this is the byproduct of it. We can now rug tokens on Bitcoin through L2s. And I don't even know if we can say that we're rugging Bitcoin meme coins if they don't bond, for example, because unlike Solana, where most, I would say, pump fund tokens end up rugging after they bond, um, we're not even reaching the 100K market cap for these things to even become runes tokens. So we're just rugging L2 IOU tokens as promises before they even become promises now, apparently, as the meta.
But you can drive a lot of volume, and if ultimately This is what most Solana tokens do is they drive volume, and that's what attracts these centralized exchanges. When in reality, it's just a volume shuffling around on Odin. It's just they're just selling one to buy another. And currently, the way that Magic Eden assesses volume is just buy volume and has no indication of sells. So when you're going on here and you're selling one to buy another, it generates, if you bought point one and you sold point one, it generated point two volume. And that's the thing that is artificial about a lot of these Solana tokens. But it is interesting to see there's volume. People are saying there's no volume on Magic Eden. There is volume on Odin, but the market caps aren't appreciating. They're just stagnant. And the thing that I mentioned the other day is our issue with runes isn't new runes. We need new runes. The issue is the way we trade them. And this is what we talk about in this space, and what Matt and Arch and many other people are working on to improve it, because Odin has proven that people will put volume in. Again, it's the problem with Odin, in my opinion, is it's a sidechain that can't be aggregated into other platforms of trading. So it's basically a walled off runes trading platform. But why would you ever take those runes off of Odin and bring them onto Bitcoin where there's no liquidity for that token? And you can't arbitrage or do anything unless if you set up a separate, distinct
Literally just popped
LP
up on
pool.
my DL, right?
Yeah.
Like, or whatever, not DL.
Someone talking?
Go ahead.
I'm getting someone that's talking. But regardless, I think that's the big pitfall of Odin is it's very slick, it's very smooth, it's quick. But again, it goes back to once it's there, they're going to stay there. So then you goes, why would I move my runes from say pups onto Odin just for the smooth of transaction? But then saying you generate an LP pool, the only people that can use that LP pool are people trading on Odin. You can't use that if you want to do an X first swap. You can't do that. So I just think it's good. It's a good start to see what can happen, but there are some limitations for that. And again, going back to what Arch has is doing, could potentially unlock some of the same type of features that Odin has done, but now you can do it in multiple different platforms through an aggregator such as Xverse or somebody else who eventually builds one where people can arbitrage and trade seamlessly through multiple different platforms.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Speed. Right now, even thereafter, the tokens, the top tokens like Odin Dog, Sparks, Snorky, I think it's called, Odin Cat, and a couple of others, I don't really see a need or even like the economic incentives for you to even bring it off of this app chain solution, right? And then, look, I think it's an excellent app in terms of how it's designed. I have quite a lot of fun with it, and I've played around with it over the weekend when it launched. I think it's great. I think Bitcoin and any ecosystem needs a killer app to bring people over. That's how you get adoption. But it's still, Bitcoin based deposits. Initially it was 4, 5, 6 blocks that it took. I think Bob Bodley actually has mitigated that to some degree. But I think, it's a good step forward. I think we needed more excitement in the runes ecosystem in general. But is this kind of like the final frontier? Like, are we just going to have ICP app chains and ICP be the Bitcoin
So
L2
people
ecosystem?
forgot DotSwap version one is this. So if people remember on DotSwap version one, that you needed to deposit onto their platform and it's instantaneously traded. So nobody used it. But again, it's just how it's advertised, and it happened to be where things were. So again, it
Well,
a little bit of a narrative in
I,
that sense,
I
and people were worried about DotSwap, and Bob has a good name in the space, so maybe that's part of it.
I think it's a combination of one. It's It's technically still runs on smart contracts and in a chain environment. I think that's a big factor than saying, hey, like this is just a centralized sequencer with off-chain AMM logic and a centralized app model with a team that maybe didn't, I guess, clarify how everything is being done. That promoted to maybe a lack of trust, but it's also Bob has created the carrot on the other side of the chain. He there is incentive to bring your Bitcoin over, risk it all to deposit into a speculative casino. And I think that's really why it was successful is because there was new launches and a launch pad on the other side. Yeah, but Matt, curious on what your take is here too, because I know you have your hand up.
No, I mean, I agree with a lot what Speed said, and but what I think that was the real innovation here that wasn't present before, and as Speed mentioned, there's similar implementations where you take similar trust assumptions to be able to trade more frictionlessly. But what they're introducing here on Odin, which is pretty much the holy grail when it comes to creating new assets, is that you're not losing all of the value that goes in from those early participants. When you're able to mint a new token in a frictionless environment that doesn't have a high degree of cost and friction, then all that liquidity can remain in the pool to then be like a foundational layer to the next evolution of this asset, which is then you have to trade it PvP, but you already have some people in the money, so they're obviously going to shill it. Before that, when you're minting these runes on the base layer, all of those fees go to the miners for the most part. And while I do say that there's all the time that it's very important to keep the miners happy, keep them fed, and scaling the security budget of Bitcoin, it's hard to launch a token up to a certain like size market cap, and then everybody being in the negative. And that's when it requires new participants and new money to come in. But it's very difficult to achieve that status when everybody's down bad. So I think that this is first and foremost an opportunity to realize that creating assets as close to the base layer as possible, but utilizing this off-chain computation for Odin, its ICP. FunkyBit will eventually launch their meme jam, which is going to be on Arch. But where you're going to start to get the improvements in the trading experience is going to come from the composability with the other apps in the ecosystem. So you don't want to just be confined within one niche canister that's built a certain way, and then everyone else, all the other devs in the ecosystem, air quotes ecosystem, have to figure out how to launch something that's composable, which it's not built for that. It's not. It's more siloed in nature. So
For,
I think that
for
that's where it
sure.
comes in.
I think at the end of the day too, like Bob built a pretty good trading platform as well. He's built like the photon of Bitcoin in a sense where I forget what it's called, like chain signatures, not chain signatures, like wallet signatures or something like that, where it just feels like a Web2 product with just clicks rather than constant signatures within the extension itself. And I think we're finally past that point in the Web3 ecosystem where I wouldn't say maybe past it entirely, where we don't want to review every single application and so forth. But it's a very nice step forward to being Web 2 like in Web 3, where the wallet is in the background. And as long as you give it access for 24 hours, 48 hours, or whatever it is, then you could just do things like a web app basically. And I think that was also a nice thing to see. It's clearly well thought out with the little troll box too, and your digital ID with Blyph ID or Mocha ID or something along those lines to give social proof and such. I think after a little bit, you're going to be able to authenticate Twitter handles to actual accounts over time. This Web3 metaverse, so to speak, this digital ID starts to become much more relevant to actually using it. Obviously, I think the biggest traders never really want their wallets and everything tied to their personal accounts. But we're also entering like an era where social trading is becoming like a very common theme. You have the guys at Vector that are building social trading where it's tied to who you are. And even there's quite a lot of like equity trading apps right now that are also trying to do very similar things where social trading is like a community. I think Wall Street Bets proves that people want to talk about their ideas. They want to show them holding and their P&L, and rather than just flexing your P&L with a screenshot in your mobile app with Phantom to flex your gains, people can see your flex 24/7 and follow those who are genuinely generating alpha. And obviously that kind of leads to those who are dumping on their followers as well. Hopefully this is just the byproduct of having a free market and everything else. Yeah.
I think the future of runes being launched is via platforms like this because the liquidity pool is being built from day one, and the amount of fees that are still that we paid miners of unminted out runes is astronomical for how many of these runes have been developed and how much have been unminted and basically are untradeable. So you basically lost that money. And in this type of a platform, at least if you got in early, you can get most of your money back because there is liquidity, even though you may get zero. You won't be zero, but you'll be some that you'll be able to get back and redeploy somewhere else. So I think this is the future of runes, but it's not, it's the way that we trade these things is most important. It's not runes themselves are a failure, in my opinion. And I think we're getting closer. There's just more and more companies and things coming to where it's just going to be easier to trade. But the more interchangeability we have through different platforms, again going back to this word aggregation, I think the better it's going to be, just because again we just don't want to trade things in silos. Otherwise, even we could be trading pups on Solana, but if there was no bridge to Bitcoin, then you just have pups on Solana. And then if you have pups on Arch and there's no bridge to Magic Eden where you couldn't get them there, like what good? We're trading three separate assets, and you want this interoperability between all these systems to where we're able to trade and arbitrage through multiple different platforms. And I think and I hope that people building products are thinking about that. Otherwise, they're just trying to extract fees from you through their platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're totally right. And like fundamentally speaking, do you want to be betting in the casino and stacking your USDC? Do you want to be stacking ETH? Do you want to be stacking Sol? Or do you want to be stacking Bitcoin when Bitcoin dominates 65 or 70% of the full ecosystem? And I gotta say, stacking Bitcoin, you come for the speculation and you stay for the hard money. It just feels like we're starting to make more and more sense here on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin will become the dominant DGen casino chip over time.
Yeah,
It's
and
certainly taking a lot longer than we all thought it would, though.
hey, look though, like over the weekend, the mempool was essentially dry, right? So we can't necessarily like always rely on these off-chain solutions. Even though the trading experience is so good, we can't lose sight of the forest through the trees here, which is we need to make sure that we scale actual DeFi applications on Bitcoin where we're signing more than just deposit and withdrawal signatures, and we're settling transactions more frequently on the Bitcoin network. Because there's a direct relationship with the security budget of Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price. So, in addition to all of our other bags that seem to be correlated with the price of Bitcoin, Bitcoin itself is just hugely dependent on our ability to continue to make base layer transactions more useful. And guys like Saturn and DotSwap, Runes Dex, these are the types of applications, or the way that they're implemented more specifically is going to actually produce that layer one activity. When you see the mempool in a state that it is or was over the weekend, that's somewhat concerning, especially if we're all having a lot of fun doing things in the L2 trenches.
100% agree. And Speed, you bring up a really good point in that tweet. As more and more Runes infrastructure is getting built out, the liquidity is going to start getting and so then we open up the need for aggregation, right? We've already seen this partially on the ordinals and NFT side, especially with even on the Rune side, you have Magic Eden, Runes Dex, dot swap liquidity, eventually Saturn liquidity, then Odin liquidity. And even on the ordinal side, there's been a massive amount of price discrepancy from marketplaces like OKX, even Ordinal's wallet sometimes, and then Magic Eden as well. You had Mintify as well, and even Statflow, right? These markets eventually will own liquidity and own their order books, but much like we've seen on every other chain, there is a massive value proposition for aggregation of everything, not only NFTs, but also fungibles, to occur on Bitcoin. Now, obviously, that becomes way more difficult if we have liquidity on ICP and Solana and Bitcoin and Arch and DotSwap centralized, RuneSex centralized. It becomes way harder to route everything. And because none of this is built on interoperable smart contracts, then you basically need someone like a Cross to start building the interoperability between everything. So, look, Bitcoin's progression is looking a lot more closely tied to how Ethereum progressed and Solana progressed in a monolithic perspective. but there's going to be dominant sources. I think there's going to be dominant smart contract execution angles that will have the most amount of liquidity on them, and kudos to those who achieve that, because they're ultimately going to be massive winners as Bitcoin's most accessible, functional, and useful smart contract layer, so to speak.
And again, the pump.fun is basically a launch pad. And when that graduates from the launch pad, it goes to the more centralized aggregators and Radium and all of these other pools. And so Jupiter came into that ecosystem. And now if someone wants to trade tokens on Solana, they just go to Jupiter, because that basically is their aggregator in a sense of trying to find the best price and getting it all for you in one place. So it's such an easy way to deal with how you're trading. When we have new entrants coming into this ecosystem, you're saying, hey, this product was launched here, and look at this product was there, and then next week there'll be a new one, and then the following week there'll be a new one there, and you're trying to find the best price. You're like, I just want to buy this token that someone's shilling me on the timeline. And that's what you need. You need something that's easy. And Xverse is trying to do that, but they're only limited with the immediate Bitcoin blockchain itself. So all these other side platforms aren't necessarily going to work for them. So I think it's important that we think about that. We're getting there, and I think we will get there, because right now it's just the infrastructure build out competition for who's going to take share of this primary trading platform. To be honest, RuneStacks is doing something very unique with this big dot fun, and then basically it launches into RuneStacks. Once it bonds, you get immediate trading on RuneStacks, which then you get instantaneous swaps on Xverse. That's probably as close of a product who's thought about that. And I know they're thinking about going to Arch, or in the process of maybe going to Arch, where you have a launch pad in what they built, immediately goes to their DEX once it graduates, and then it's instantaneously swappable through an aggregator. For the average buyer of a token, it's just so much easier to find. So I think that's important. The other thing, going back to Matt and the issue with fees, is there has to be some sort of balance between fees and quickness. And I don't think it's necessarily reliant on our ecosystem to provide Bitcoin fees in perpetuity, when in reality, most people are just buying Bitcoin these days and have no use for it and just storing it. That's not necessarily, they didn't want us here in the first place. But if this fungibles on Bitcoin, in fact, takes off, that will actually be an inhibitor of people using runes because of the cost of transaction fees. So if we get to these phases where someone is doing direct fees for every transaction, and we get back to April of last year when runes launched, you're going to be paying more for fees than you will for the tokens. So I think there's a balance between verifying and validating on chain, maybe in aggregating fashion that can be done much more cost efficient, versus each and individual transaction like we're doing currently.
Yeah, and what speed it there's I'll take it one step further. You're talking about the big fund to the runes decks, all the way to the layer one and aggregator to Xverse. But then you'll have Wasabi at the same time, where you'll actually be able to do not synthetic perps, but actually on-chain perps that, let's say you just hit a 30x lick on one of these big fund token launches and you want to lock in some of those profits. You can now take a margin net short position, but it's not necessarily some synthetic PvP perp. It actually plays into the DEX volume. And that matters, right? Like, it's easy to look at Magic Eden's volume, and which equates to basically like a low cap shitter on Solana on any given day. But the reason for all of that volume is this dynamic flow of capital, where you have not just PvP, I have to basically sell for profit for you to sell at a loss. There's a whole spectrum of different types of trades and speculation that you can do on that asset, where you can actually borrow against, the asset and earn yield. Or, I mean, I'm sorry, you could loan out that meme coin and earn yield, or you can borrow against it and sell it on the deck simultaneously in one fluid transaction, and now you're net short. So all of these different types of trade strategies now open up the space to more traders. Now we get more Solana traders into the space trading runes, because now we have the tools that are familiar to them. So this all plays into being more composable and bringing the volume, which is what we ultimately need.
And I agree with that completely, because right now the only way people can profit from runes is price appreciation, price go up. And so then a lot of times, because of our primary oracle being Magic Eden, which is an order book, which is not anywhere close to what we should be trading on, it's the seller controls the order book. So then why would I go and risk my capital coming into play when anybody else behind me can basically dump below the price regardless of how much they're selling. Versus an AMM like structure, it's dependent on the buy and sell. You get the price you deserve. So if someone buys $1 million, well, the price is going to go up $1 million proportionally. If the someone sells $10, it's going to go down proportionally to that sale. And so the market is setting the price and not the individuals. When we have ways that we can interact with price both in a stable price, there's ways that you can work with perps and you can profit if prices stay the same or if price appreciates or depreciates. So again, it just adds an extra layer for people saying, man, maybe they just hit a massive win on one of them, but they still love it long term, but they want to protect themselves with a little insurance. Well, you can go to these perps. Instead of having to dump your bag, you can just buy some insurance in a sense.
Yo, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if someone was ragging, but yeah, it is super interesting. What I love to see too is Bob using laser eyes to build Odin.fun, which is amazing to see. I do think it's interesting, like with the like siloed liquidity situation of all these different networks. And I do think just price routing, it's a very common thing on all other networks and just finding these arbitrage things for the traders themselves. But the short term, it is going to allow for like arbitrage winners to like really make out the best. But I think it's something that matures. But it is super interesting to see like a lot of these tokens aren't getting volume anywhere else besides Odin.fun. And it's really interesting. Like I haven't even seen one trade, or is there trades of like Bob's balls or like any of them on Magic Eden? Has anyone seen? I
They're
just
not
searched
etched
and
yet. They haven't etched them. So they're finalizing that here in the next day or so, where they'll technically be able to bridge them off of there and onto here. But so that is coming up in the coming days where they basically will just give it an assigned number and then it'll be on Magic Eden or technically anywhere else. But then again, it would be reliant on people bridging off of that platform that has all the liquidity onto a platform that has zero. And I just don't know why someone
interesting.
would do that.
Yeah,
So,
that's a okay. So is that going to be the cadence of the releases, or is this just like the first, like
no, as
the
soon as
growing?
on is this is growing pains. It wasn't intended to take off this quickly, I don't think. So it typically he actually I was on a space with him yesterday and they're generating a smart contract, which is actually a bot that's going to etch the rune when it bonds on Odin. So it'll happen without the need of a human to do that. So it technically will be etched. Then the next thing they have to do is be able to then, just like you're bridging Bitcoin off and on, you be able to do the same with your runes off and on. So you basically get your proportional amount when you leave and when you bring them back. So it all works, but again, it's not, you can't aggregate. And I asked him about that. So I said, is there any way that you guys could do aggregation, say via Xverse swap? And the only way that he's been initially talking about and thinking about it is you'd have to do limit orders on his platform, but then you'd still require a deposit. So that would have to be sitting in an open, unsigned transaction for a given price. And once it hit it, it would execute the order. That's what we do with Magic Eden, right? When you're trying to sell something, or if you put in a buy offer, you have to deposit that money to ensure that it's there. And then ultimately, if somebody comes by and shakes your hand, you get the asset. So again, it's just not the most ideal way to just to say, hey, I want to get the best price. Instead, now you got to lock up your Bitcoin thinking that maybe in the future I'm going to get it at a cheaper price.
Interesting. It's so crazy. Like when runes first released, like how what people were not okay with being like really maxi about the on-chain, like Bitcoin native primitives. Even Bob being one of the big people that would call out a lot of the networks and stuff in a good way. But I think now that the market is so desperate for runes to do something, just how people are now opening up that mindset and allowing these innovations that I believe, as long as they're technically sound and leverage other networks for what they're good at, I think it's a net positive. But just seeing that kind of mind shift is pretty crazy. It's imagine if this launched week 1 of runes. I don't think it would have been nearly as accepted Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, like anybody could have launched this application on something like Bob or Mezzo or Bitlayer or even Stacks, quite frankly. Like it's just Bitcoin deposits at the end of the day. So it just shows you if Bob basically just made, or Bob Bodily rather, made a pretty good Bitcoin bridge to ICP with
And the
just
product is great. Like the
kind of
product
work.
is great. I'm not trying to FUD Odin by any means. I've traded it. I like it. It works great. It's just it's siloed, and that's the only thing that I don't like because now you have a separate, distinct entity. Is it truly a rune if it's only traded on one platform? If it's not interchangeable between multiples? If we're gonna not trade them on Bitcoin main layer.
I think as long as you can bring it back to the base layer, I guess it is Maroon. It's almost like Bitcoin's becoming the base layer of tokens, so to speak. Or
Yeah, it
it's
just has
like
locked liquidity. That's my only issue.
yeah,
If I could buy it with my X First wallet without having to do anything different, then it works. You know what I mean?
I get his decision, right? He wanted to build something today. He's coming from an ICP background. He wanted to launch it as quickly as possible. And how else do you do this? How else do you do this today? Look, it wouldn't surprise me if Bob changes his decision thereafter to migrate or port this application to something more Bitcoin aligned or at least accessible from the base layer. Look, that's always a potential opportunity, but as it stands right now, I correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's really another avenue to build on this just yet, outside of maybe Stacks, which nobody seemed to decide to do that on.
Yeah, I think we have a slightly different design that we're partnering with somebody with. Like we're the AMM side, but like someone else working on launching it's called Factory.fun, and they're going to be like the design is like you etch the runes token first, and then it's bridged over through Pontus infrastructure, and then but it's bridged directly to the bonding curve smart contract. You etch the runes, and then you bridge over the amount that
But,
goes to the
but,
bonding
but
contract, and
that still requires you to wait the 6 blocks for the etching to take place, right? This isn't a design that has that in mind of only etch if it's bonded, otherwise it's a useless rune. Correct?
So
so creating the token, if you're going to create a token and you're like trying to actually put some effort behind like having like a Twitter account or like maybe some KOLs or something, right? Like
so
maybe
we got
just some of the more basic stuff, like you're probably going to be willing to wait 6 blocks, but you know, it like guarantees whatever name that you want as well.
that's the
But
big thing. Exactly.
yeah.
Because we had Big Dot Fun on, it was on the Shroom Space on Sunday. They came up because we were chatting about Odin. And so they have two ideas that you can do when you launch. One can be etch after it bonds, what Odin's doing. The other would be to pre etch, like you're talking about, Dylan. Because again, if someone were to front run you, maybe you have some cool name that you want to make sure it has the exact letters and characters and everything. You may want to then pre etch it. So then when it does go and bond, you actually get what you wanted rather than say if someone sees that this was bonding, like you talked about with this post on Odin, and you get like four different ones that try to front run you, which one's the right one or whatever. So there is some of that, that there could be a role for both potentially.
Yeah, 100%. And then it's easier to like take it wherever else you need to go, whether it's Arch, Magic Eden, anything like that.
Yeah, love it. I know Leo had his hand up. What's up, Leo? Oh, and he's gone. I think he just rugged.
Yeah, I think he was having some issues. Looks like he came up and down a few times.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
But this
Anything
is
else that's going on in this space? I guess we're all just excited to be using our Bitcoin primarily. We had that mass capitulation of ordinals runes where it truly did feel like it's all over, and then I guess it's not. So it's definitely a buy the dip type opportunity for anyone still believing. And look,
Yeah.
it feels like we're getting a prolonged bull run super cycle type attitude where this is the first buy the dip liquidation cascade, or maybe the second or third by now, that we've had over the last 3 months. And we probably have 17 to 20 of these more to go, you know?
And for the older runes, the amount of Bitcoin that would take to appreciate the price has basically been the same for weeks, if not months. It's just people continuing to compete against each other to sell in a low liquid environment. So it's not like new people for a lot of them trying to come out and sell. It's just there's just no volume because again, it's you can make a sweep and 10 minutes later, because of such low volume, arbitrageurs are just selling below you. So it's just one of those things where a lot of people are just sitting on their hands, unfortunately, while we're getting this all sorted out. I did post to the top. Slingshot continues to post things. They posted again a couple today. It looks like they're getting ready to have Bitcoin meme coins coming onto Slingshot.
Interesting. I do wonder how that'll work if they're wrapping these or something along those lines. There's another team that built something called Teleswap, which allows you to buy runes with any EVM based token. And the way that works is they just end up wrapping these and creating these liquidity pools, so to speak, within their application itself. But again, that's doesn't that's like Matt mentioned when he was up here. That's not really like accessible composability if you're just having a liquidity pool in a silo for an application. But I don't think Slingshot is gonna do that. So maybe they are working with Magic Eden. I know Chartfu is very close to the Slingshot team, so um, he likely has some input there along the way. But it should be interesting. I think, the other topic of interest that we had, and I've been brainstorming is, should we just be able to buy tokens, NFTs from other chains directly on Bitcoin with any currency? Like, is that the direction that you think we're going to take to bring mass onboarding from Ethereum and Solana? So, say you hold ETH and you want to get rid of it finally, you can just buy, a Node Monk or a Puppet or a Bitcoin Shroom or Pups or Dog or Billy. Um, with that soul or with that ETH, I don't know how
That's
much that actually unlocks though.
That's Magic Eden Wallet. That's what they've been trying to do because of then all those swaps are happening in the background. So that's what they're trying to achieve. But again, I think right now everyone's trying to say price is down everywhere. So it's not just runes, it's not just ordinals. You just look across the board. The liquidity that just rushed out of the system as a result of a lot of these rugs recently, the Trump and Melania tokens took down tons of people's liquidity, and so I think everybody's in this like regrouping mode. And so the question is it going to return? I think it probably will at some point. There'll be some better sentiment. But right now it's just super bad. So again, we're talking about silos. Us in this silo are saying our prices are down. What can we fix? And to be honest, it's probably good on the rune side that we have more time to work on this because if everything, the biggest problem here not so long ago was runes are down comparative to Solana tokens as they're ripping, and ours haven't really changed in price in that period of time, and theirs are down 80%. So again, it's just we just need to improve the infrastructure over here. But it is one of those kind of holy grails of crypto, right? A lot of these people have tried to done these interoperable chains. There's been tons of them in crypto that have been able to say buy something on this, that, and the other thing. It just hasn't, we haven't found that magic bullet yet. And so I think Magic Eden's been trying to work on that since they have the infrastructure and platform for a lot of different platforms. And I think they're going to eventually probably roll out a product that'll say, if you want, take your soul and buy, you don't need to actually go through the process of swapping. It'll do it in the back end.
Yeah, agreed. There's a lot of teams that are working with this, like liquidity from like liquidity layers on Bitcoin itself. There was a couple of really big announcements, primarily around like the Lightning ecosystem. There was like Flashnet, there was LNFi, and so there's quite a lot of teams that are building this stables to Bitcoin infrastructure route. And I guess I would be curious on how or if it's even composable with anything that us in the more degen casino side of things have to offer, or if it.
Lightning is what's used for Big Dot Fun.
Oh, is it?
Yep. So that's what you're depositing into.
Are you sure on that?
Yeah, they were on Sunday. So
Oh
that's what
shoot.
they're using for fast transactions. It requires a deposit once
For
you
now.
interact with it. Correct. Yeah, correct. That's going to change potentially if they end up moving over to Arch, but they are using that as infrastructure because that's where their dev came from Lightning.
Oh, whoa, I must have missed this, but I was under the impression that Big.Fun was originally like the meme coin launchpad on kind of this pseudo L1 solution that they had, which was very slow. So are you saying that they have built like an Odin Fun style launchpad now to create new runes and trade new runes, but to do it in the speed of lightning, or
Yep.
only on the bonding itself, and then it goes to the L1 solution?
Correct. Yep. So right now
Okay.
you're bonding on Lightning, so in and out with fast transactions, very low fees. What Odin does, and then once it bonds, it goes to RuneStacks. So it goes off of that platform. It's etched onto RuneStacks, and so now you have our traditional platform. But again, I believe they're working with Arch to roll over there once that goes live.
That's interesting. Okay, all right. I totally missed that part. I guess we have Ord.io building Funtoshi, which is going to be their new runes launchpad. I have no idea what it's just a new Twitter account. Then we got Big.Fun, then we got Funky Bit, then we have Odin Fun. It's almost like we're having a battle of who can figure out the distribution model
There's
of these
Valhalla.
Bitcoin
People don't
vehicles.
even, that one launched a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Valhalla. That's Ordzar's team,
Yep.
right? Or
So that one
I
is
think.
also out there.
Am I also mistaken that the Ordzar team swap product is called Odin Swap, and then their pump
It
fund is
is.
called
Dude, that was
Valhalla,
confusing me
It
for
and
is.
sure.
Odin
Yeah. And
Odin
they
Fund's launchpad is called Odin Fun, while their backend is called
Valhalla.
Valhalla.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
the
all right. I'm not
opposite.
the only one. I was
No,
like, bro,
it was, I saw the same. I was confused. Wait a
Do
minute.
we
Whose product are we talking about here?
are we missing something here, or are we running out of like clever names for Bitcoin products? That's interesting. That's interesting. I know I want to give a chance for Leo Kellard to speak as well. He's had his hand up. He's doing something pretty cool. He's the original designer of Runestone as an art piece. I think the digital art piece and some physicals. But Leo, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Last try, Farmer Joe. I hope you hear me, everyone. I'm so sorry, my internet connection is not that great. I am outside the office. I am a marble sculptor and a digital artist. I do marble sculpting on stone for more than 20 years. I go to Italia, I buy block of marble and I do this kind of beautiful marble sculptures by hand. And I have this deep interest for long-term inscriptions. So doing blockchain art and block of marble sculpting is quite close to me because maybe in a few decades we will look at this very early Bitcoin inscription like the modern archaeology of digital files. It might be the last remaining files of the 2000 in few decades or few centuries. And I love the beauty of the fact that you can now inscribe things on chain. I won't talk that much about Rune because I don't use them that much and I'm not specialized in that. I'm more an artist and I'm interested in inscriptions mostly and beautiful ordinals inscriptions. And yes, I had the chance to be invited by Leonidas to do the design of the runestone. He wanted an artist, a physical and digital artist to do the runestone. And now I am working on a 5 meters, 8 tons black marble runestone. It's quite fun actually to work on such a massive monolith and a massive marble piece. And I have also doing something quite crazy for the last 8 months. I have inscribed all the rare stones of the world. I am based in Paris, in France, and we have an amazing museum, Le Louvre. And you have an amazing selection of stones at the Louvre Museum. And I had the chance to do 3D scanning of all of these stones. And it gave me an idea 8 months ago to do a collection of stones that would be based on the rarity of real stones, from the regular marble stone you can find anywhere to the most exquisite gems and lapis lazuli blue stone and malachite. And it has been challenging working with Ordinalbot and many amazing people to do this kind of 3D inscription of more than 400 stones. And I'm very happy to launch this collection on Thursday. I don't look at momentum. I don't look at charts. I just build. I just do what I love doing, art and special, beautiful, rare inscriptions. And I hope you will like it. It's an amazing mechanism in the back of it because you can merge the stone to access higher level of rarity. We have been building a beautiful website that you can check in my bio. A lot of interesting things incoming, and also for the higher level of rarity, the level 5, you will have access to some fantastic physical art from well-known artists. I can't reveal name yet, but the main idea is to onboard newcomers. We need new blood. I don't want to dilute the liquidity of this ecosystem. I want to add value. I am well known in the physical art world, and I think we can onboard many newcomers if we share the good storytelling. I love Rule, I love Degen, I am also interested in this kind of Web3 storytelling, but I am sure we have many new things to do and explore, and I'm very happy if you want to join because these stones is something that I have definitely worked with my heart.
Appreciate it, Leo. Good luck on the mint. Obviously, you've done a really awesome job of creating the 3D art for the original runestone, and I take it that the mint is happening on Magic Eden as a launchpad. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. It's on Thursday.
Perfect.
So 2 days to go. Thursday at 6 p.m. CET, 12 p.m. ET. You can check on my Twitter. You have all the information, the website in bio, all the tweets with details. And yes, you're more than welcome. And actually, I see many friends in the room.
All right. Sorry, we try not to make this too much of an advertisement per se. Obviously, just being respectful of those builders and the topic of the show and whatnot. But you guys know where to get it, and if you're interested, take a look. Neighbor, let's pivot a little bit. Neighbor, you have an official token now, but you don't even own it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say I have an official token, but I did create a token on Odin, like a lot of other people.
I think you're underselling this a little bit.
Okay, I guess I haven't really had a chance to tell the story, so I might as well
All right,
take
let's
this opportunity.
shoot the lore. Why did you want to launch, a character meme? Why did you choose to make it this Snorlax-looking bear character that no one really knows what it is actually, but it's a critter. What's the lore story here? Why'd you want to do it? And yeah, tell us how this kind of came to be as an idea, or was it just shooting from the hip?
Yeah, so this was definitely shooting from the hip. So I think I had beta access to the platform last week. And then I did notice on the website that is like, oh, achievements. And then he popped up with achievements. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So I was asking a bunch of people, I'm like, hey, anybody got a good meme, good photo I can use and create a dope token? The goal was to create a dope token. If you look at a lot of the other tokens, they're all just the same. It's like Odin man, Odin warrior, Odin blah, blah, blah. There's no originality behind it. The artist sent me this and he's like, oh, you can use this character I created. So I said, okay, awesome. So last week I posted on X, I'm like, hey, I'm going to launch this token. Can somebody just name this guy? So it started out as just a funny, hey, I'm going to launch this on Odin. Does somebody want to just name this? So somebody named it. And then I started getting DMs like, hey, did you pick a name? Did you pick a name? What are you launching? And then it just snowballed into, okay, I'm launching this. So people are like, are you launching this? Are you launching this? And I was like, nah, volume kind of sucks. I'm going to wait till Monday when we went public. Yeah, Monday came by and I was like, hey, I'm going to launch this. I'm going to do it fair. At the end of the day, I was just I've never shilled and launched this shit before. So it was all new to me. It was a learning lesson for somebody that tries to consider themselves as a builder in this space. I've never posted about, hey, I'm launching this at this o'clock or this and that. But holy fuck, what a learning lesson that was. I try to make it like as transparent, as fair as possible. People are like, why did you give your wallet information? I'm like, if I don't, then they're going to say everybody else knew in your inner circle and you didn't help me. So I try to make it as transparent as possible. I don't own any. I didn't tell a single person before launch. Anyways, the launch, leading up to the launch, people like, it was insanity. And then after the launch. So I don't know if you guys have looked at it, but I guess it was great that we launched this because now we learned that you can actually bot Odin. So somebody bought it a 0.01 buy, and I don't know, I think they sold for like 0.23 or something like that right off the hop. So that first candle was insane. And I guess people got wrecked. I disclaimed, I'm like, don't ape into this. There's absolutely nothing. I was just trying to have fun. I realized that other people's money was on the line. I didn't buy any, but I did say, please don't buy this. Don't ape into this. Then it tanked.
Sir, you're a degen, and you know that when you tell the degens don't buy it, not financial advice, it's probably gonna go to zero. That's you get a total opposite reaction, even if you mean no. Look, I love this. I was definitely one of those people that was refreshing that wallet address, and I most definitely got wrecked in the process. But it actually seems like I guess learning lesson of don't share a CA before it's actually gonna go live type of thing. Otherwise, it's gonna get sniped, and I guess that's what happened here. And it seems like there are some, from what you're saying, it seems like there's quite a lot of, or at least enough sophisticated actors on Odin now that anyone who announces they're gonna launch something and gives away the information as to what their account name is likely has a bot sniping the supply the second it goes live on the app chain itself. Look, it seems like it's doing pretty decently. It's got a Telegram group as far as I see. It has an X handle. It's got a X group chat that people keep inviting me to. And the distribution at the end of the day, it's actually pretty decent for a meme coin. It's probably in line with most very promising, successful meme coins on Solana. Top holders have just shy of 3%. Then you have a batch of holders at 2. Then most people have 1. So you only have 20 people owning more than 1%. That's not terrible, honestly. It very much isn't terrible. I'm just excited to see what the heck goes on with it, or if people decide to run with it, or there's probably enough people here that own there's 20 people here that can work for their bags if they really align for it. Good luck to them if they do it, and congrats on your first launch, and I guess the learning process from it as well, which must have been interesting. What was your, I guess the amount of messages that you were getting right after the launch was overwhelming to the negative side, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people got wrecked on the first candle. And then like right away that story got turned into, oh, this was an insider act. And that was like, that's where I felt the most. Listen, like I try to make this as clear as possible. You can go through any of my Discord, like everybody, even in my own Discord, was pissed. Like, oh, what the fuck? You didn't tell us before. And I try to make this as clear as possible. Like, I'm transparently just launching this and I'm just letting it fly. Would I have done it differently? I don't know. Like maybe I'll just throw that back to you guys. Like how do you launch something as fair, free, and transparent as possible? Obviously bots are gonna beat everybody. We didn't know Odin has bots to that extent, but should I have not given the deployment address and then people would have found it after and said, oh, you didn't tell us what it was? Like I guess just throwing it back to you, like how would you have done this any more fair?
Dude, I have no idea. I see pump fund shitters literally just it gets pretty wild. I think at the end of the day, like the most fair launch is an ICO, right? Like you have Pain Token that raised $40 million just yesterday. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Pump fund bonding curves they're designed to pump. I don't think they're designed for fair launches. I think they're designed for cabal cooks and cabal sends. Anyone who says internet capital markets start on pump fund is probably part of a group that has an edge to information to know who's launching it and who's doing what and who's doing this that. But if you really think about it, the fairest of the fair launches is just to throw out a link and saying, "Hey, here is the pre-sale address," and I don't know, you put a portion of the. I don't even know how you would design a liquidity pool around it. Maybe you just throw everything 50-50 into a liquidity pool and do that as like the fairest launch, and but then you have no team supply and team incentive, and the team also needs to buy in, or I don't know, honestly I really don't know, but it looks like the Solana cabal is part of the top holders of this Sporky, is it? Yes, Snorky, yeah. It looks like Frank D. Gauze is in, Rasmer from Solana is in. I think Michael Saylor is in as well, which is really interesting. You have Bob, I think that's Bob Bodley. Yeah, that's Bob Bodley. He owns 1%. So look, you got the right people holding this thing. I think that's all good. I think from this point on, look, I think at the end of the day, these tokens need to start distributing themselves out, right? I think they're never going to be fair at launch because everyone's day one anticipation is to make money, flip it, sell it, whatever it is. And things are fairer over time. If you look at Bitcoin mining, even, was Bitcoin very fair with Satoshi and his insiders being able to have the first right or first knowledge set to believe that mining or mining Bitcoin at the time was very fair? Look, I think this concept of fair in life doesn't ever exist. The concept of wealth transfer needs to happen, and life's never fair at the end of the day. VC backed Web2 companies, is it fair that A16Z has access to a deal before everyone else? I don't know, probably not, but that's just the way that life works, and life gives opportunities to those who have capital and can provide the most assistance or claim to have the most amount of assistance or knowledge networks that they can connect people with. I don't know. I feel like this idea of free and fair never ends up really working out, as we've seen with the original kind of runes meme coins. There's probably going to be someone that does some really crazy degeneracy and creates a runes ICO launchpad where someone can say, "Hey, this token is launching at 100K," and everyone gets in at the exact same price, and you just bid it up. Or this token is a 1 mil pre-sale, and all of that liquidity is going to the liquidity pool or something like that. I don't know. Someone's probably going to build that, but does that constitute fundraising activities and making it a security? Look, it all depends on where you're incorporated and how much you want to take a betting chance that you're going to jail very quickly on. So I don't know. I don't have the right answer, but kudos for you to try. And I think you've done as much that you could do to make it at least agnostic from the information itself. Everything is out there, who your account is, what your intentions are with this. Like, you probably did the most transparent, and I guess fair to some extent, Odin Fund launch at this point. I think you accomplished that on its own, and time will tell if Snorky becomes a leading Odin Fun runes meme coin, or if it goes to zero. But I got a feeling that it won't. It feels like there's enough of a community, mimetic community forming. But that doesn't
Yeah,
mean we're probably not going to launch hundreds of coins on Odin Fun.
yeah. I'll just add one more thing there, and then I'll step down. But I think the launch aside from being bought, I think it was pretty awesome to see that excitement again for people waiting for a token launch. Just even the volume on the token, the volume on Odin Fund, even people asking me like, "Hey, how do I sign up for this platform?" If I managed to sign up 10 more people to trade on Bitcoin, I feel like I did my job. But right now, we're looking at it like, hey, it was an Odin project. It launched on Odin. But at the end of the day, once Bob is done being able to etch, these are going to go back on Magic Eden or even stay on Odin. Then the money can move around. It can go into other runes, can go into this. And that's the beauty of it, right? So hopefully
Look,
this brings more
I think
volume.
as soon as they can get to L1, someone's going to be crazy enough to bring it to Solana, and someone's going to be crazy enough to bring it to some Bitcoin L2, and it starts to be more flexible. And so Odin Fund becomes one place of liquidity, and then someone creates another place of liquidity. And then you have centralized exchanges at another place of liquidity, right? So I think it's just a game, right? I think it's a game of, is this gaining traction? Is it gaining distribution? And how quickly can you basically snowball this momentum? And yeah, I like it. I like it. I think it's great that we're starting to get more competition in the launchpad space after getting tired of Ord.io and Luminex free and fair movements, which led to down only price charts for 8 months straight. Yeah, I think attention brings users here, and it brings up only charts over time. So this is still early access, or like the only people that care about it is the community that we're in right now. Once other people start to notice, runes again, I think we could get a pretty significant snowball here, and there's going to be some killer app or some killer distribution platform or some killer token that launches that sends to 10 million, 100 mil market cap, or even a billion, that is just going to open the floodgates to the masses. We'll see what that is, though. But thanks for having. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I'll step down. Yeah, great job with this show, by the way. Love it. Cheers.
Thanks, neighbor. Bonzi, I wanted to ask: does Odin Fund use Laser Eyes for the wallet integration side of things?
Yeah, it does
Oh,
actually.
it does. Cool. Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So it's cool seeing credible builders like Bob. And then another big build that's coming out of it is something Raf's working on. And so we've been getting a lot of good feedback, getting it really mature. And then I also been talking with Wallet Connect. So we're going to be helping them. It's looking to help them to start integrating all the Bitcoin wallets into like things like Reown and getting more into the EVM side, which is a good way to build out the ecosystem.
So it sounds like those who are involved with Laser Eyes have the alpha to know good products coming out soon. So I should be DMing you to know exactly what's coming.
Yeah, dude, I'll fucking show you all my bags, dude. So there's some Solana coins that are starting to use it. If you want to check them out, it's cool.
What was that chain, that UTXO based blockchain that was like
Oh,
free and fair by
dude,
the Doge founder? Are those guys
Bells.
using laser? Is Bell's coin using Laser Eyes too?
No, dude, that's why they're struggling. No, but Bells is banging, dude. You're tripping. That's like that is that and Fractal have been the best places to test and scale out builds on Bitcoin because it's just really fast. And the narrative around Bells, you already know what it is. You're just bummed that you missed it, but it's okay. There's always another Doge. There's always another Doge founder.
Bells, November 13th, close to $2 a token. Bells, February 4th,
Wait, okay, you're breaking up.
25 cents.
You're breaking up.
If you're telling me Bells is the future one more time.
Dude, Bells is the past, future, and present all in one token. If you're looking for something, I could go on for years about tokens that have gone up and down. You want to talk about pups? Oh, too close, too close. Chill out, dude. All right, dude. Laser Eyes is working with pups. No, yeah, it is. All jokes aside, it is pretty cool seeing like some of these builders adopt. And then I mentioned it last time, but dude, Matt, we do need to connect because I was chatting with Harry and getting like my thesis is this: apps like Odin.fun are able to get to market much quicker and able to scale and focus on what is most important is the user experience and all this stuff. When you abstract away the nuance of Wallet Connect, adding all these libraries, chasing down all the different nuances between them. And this is not just a thesis, but proven on Ethereum. Like you can go and use WAGME and even Rainbow Kit, which utilizes WAGME, and just do an NPX and get like a really rudimentary, like templated app up and running super quick, allowing builders to start quickly building apps. And now with the progression of AI, like you give that and cursor to someone with an idea, like we have way more apps that are getting pushed to market, which this whole ecosystem rewards experimentation, first to market. So I really think to grow the pie, we need to make the developer toolkit like way stronger. And that's why this is just like a public good in hopes that it draws more developers and then they see these things happening and then now they can build, because finding a Bitcoin developer is very hard, especially with how ordinals kind of the main projects have grabbed them. But it shouldn't be that difficult. And that's the whole idea around it. And I think like putting together a really cool developer toolkit for Arch and like using Laser Eyes, I think is honestly like a no-brainer and just a cool way to start people spinning up these apps. So yeah, we got to cook on that like very soon here as you guys are nearing release. So I think that would be dope. But yeah, I haven't used Odin Fund too much, and that's where. But I love seeing the excitement and just honestly the chat around it. And I have to say, bro, Farmer, you had one of the most your take when Nick from Gamma tweeted about it. Oh my god, bro. I was like, Dad, I was like, damn, dude, that was some Witters vibes. Just full fire on the timeline. I was like, that was amazing. That made my day.
Look, I'm very passionate about my Thunderbolts, and if he's telling me that nobody wants that, I'm gonna clap back and say nobody wants.
They're just oh god, like I it's rare that I just see a good burn on the timeline and just really have to I even remember it. I forget what I ate for breakfast, but that shit was so good. But I think it's crazy that the market did what it did. It took such a hit from the tariff and all the speculation. A lot of people lied on the timeline, said they were stabled up, it's done, and then the next day they're extremely bullish again. But regardless, to be able to absorb that amount of like liquidity, I think it was like a significant amount leaving the ecosystem. And a few people had interesting takes around it was similar to FTX and all this stuff, but Bitcoin was at a much lower price then, so it's not nearly as significant. But the way we were able to bounce back, but now we're dealing with this China FUD, but just showing like how resilient some of these like sell-offs are has me super bullish on some of these bounce backs that are happening. And I don't know, I want to hear your thought about it because you have a pretty strong macro sense of some of these. I LARP super hard on macro stuff. I can see where point A goes to point B and kind of put some of these narratives together. But from your perspective, how are some of these more macro situations playing into how you're addressing or seeing the market grow or
I
whatever?
mean, I wouldn't say like I'm a macro expert, for example, but I just have this feeling that higher and for longer is going to be the outcome of every single market over the next little while. Like it's Trump. His first couple of years of presidency are usually extremely bullish, and he's very much glued to the stock market performance being, a driving factor of his ego. So he's very much like aligned. He's got quite a lot of levers. He hates the Fed being independent, but he can do quite a lot of things personally to basically massage the Fed to do what he says in a way, be it lowering capital gains taxes or lowering corporate taxes or lowering income taxes, driving tariffs up to then drive up inflation, which then drives them to decrease interest rates over time. And so generally the market sentiment is that there are probably no rate cuts in 2025, which usually rate cuts means risk assets go up. And if the market's pricing in no rate cuts, I think the market is entirely off base here. And so if we're going to start to get risk asset or rate cuts as a byproduct of some of his decisions and his art of the deal type negotiation tactics of driving chaos to drive outcomes, then I think we have a pretty fucking bullish year for Bitcoin in general. And then I just linked this CoinDesk tweet that just came out. AI and crypto chart David Sachs. There is a announcement that is coming out live on CoinDesk. I think is actually in 7 minutes time, which will effectively drive America's plan for digital assets as a whole. And I guess it's part of the reason why crypto rallied pretty drastically. As the moment that they did announce this, the market just flipped bullish on a dime. From it's all over to we are so fucking back, and super cycle is in play again. Even though relative to 7 days, 14 days ago, all our crypto bags are actually down, other than maybe Bitcoin. So look, it's like the degens in the casino are like mega down depressed in the moment that our bags go up 20% after losing 30-40% of our value. We're suddenly optimistic. So the dopamine spikes keep us coping pretty long, but I think it's worth holding your bags all across the board. Like I'm not a seller here, just too bullish on US and digital assets and Trump and everything else that's coming out on Bitcoin. I actually made a tweet that I left Binance as head of listings yesterday, and today I joined as a DeFi lead at the Bitcoin Core Foundation, or Bitcoin Foundation, or whatever you want to call it. total joke, totally satire, but it feels like I'm championing this DeFi ecosystem and trying to carry everyone on my back here. And if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'll be wrong. I'm just too bullish, TLDR.
Yeah. Now that I think the rate cut thing is the main thing that's gonna be like the thing that either makes or breaks the timeline. But we got Bless. Haven't heard from you in a while, so great to see you, bro. What is good? How you been?
Yo, what up? Chillin'. I used to have like conversations with ZK about like random. Whenever I get a chance to talk to him, I always ask him my like questions. And one of the things was like in the beginning, it was like, "Yo, what do you think of Ruins?" You know, when it first came out. And I feel like ZK has always been a degen. He's never publicly came out and been like, "Oh, I fuck with the certain Ruin or not." But I'm like, I think one of the biggest things was that I remember at one point thinking Bitcoin ruins was gonna be like the only asset that wasn't gonna be regulated or some shit like that. And then now President Trump obviously dropped the Solana meme coin, so I felt like that thesis was out the window. I feel like I'm curious, like I'm not trying to be a bear. Obviously, I got a bear PFP right now, but what was like now the only thing is culture, right? I think I'm looking at Odin.fun or whatever, and there's one thing I just saw on the timeline that I thought would have went crazy on Bitcoin. Like I just saw it like it didn't even bond. And I'm like, damn, bro, is it just are Bitcoin degens tired? Are there even any Bitcoin degens? Because a lot of the times when people talk about ruins, they're like, oh, it's a different asset class. They're a different type of token. They're not really shit coins. They're like more like more sophisticated in a way. And
They're
I
a
think I
fungible collectible, right? Like that's
yeah. It was just like more I'm like I think one of the biggest things was part of the on Solana is just there's so many new coins and they make people money and the people that make money rotate into their conviction plays. And I think we haven't had that much support for like new things, new random things that come out of nowhere and we don't there's no like volume that comes in like crazy and just ape like insane into like Bitcoin meme coins like they people are usually like more selective about what they buy and which is good and bad at the same time because there's certain things again like this one I'm not gonna say it but there's one thing I was like oh shit this probably would have popped off and I try to look right now someone made the token and then yeah it didn't really bond so I was like what do you guys think it's gonna take to get people on Bitcoin to degen actually degen and try to like just fucking buy and sell. 'Cause that's part of the game, right? To
yeah,
actually
but
buy and sell.
I have a very simple answer on this is that it's still not that easy to get Bitcoin over from other chains. If you just look at how easy it is to get ETH or wrapped ETH on Base or ETH on any of these L2s, or even just like general tokens on other chains, are just easier to acquire because they have built infrastructure that allows bridging, like across portal, wormhole, you name it. They have an easy route to get from one chain to the other because there's on chain liquidity on one chain and on chain liquidity on the other to basically match the liquidity pools. And so Bitcoin doesn't really have that. Most of Bitcoin's liquidity sits on centralized exchanges. Over time, we're probably going to have Hyperliquid have a substantial amount of spot Bitcoin activity or liquidity, which then we can maybe route liquidity through to get Bitcoin over from an on chain perspective. But because it doesn't have smart contracts, it's very hard to link Bitcoin to other chains, or even if you just look at things like FixFloat, ChainJelly, every single other application out there that you can go from ETH to Bitcoin, it doesn't really have an easy like Xverse wallet connect solution attached to it. And 95% of the time, if you're not using ThorSwap at least, it just routes from centralized exchanges anyways. And then no one wants to do this because if you route over like 10K or 20K, then you get a KYC request from ChainJelly, which is a pain in the ass. You got to provide your passport details. You got to provide authentication that you own both sides of the wallet. Send them a micro transfer of Bitcoin, micro transfer of Ethereum. I've been through this and it sucks. And so that's really the challenge here is as good as the products on Bitcoin will be, People are hodling their Bitcoin mostly on this chain. They're not really Bitcoin degens. We got to bring the degens from the Sol Casino, the ETH Casino over, but there is no really easy way for them to get their Bitcoin over to something like Odin Swap. Over time, I think there's going to be solutions where we have on-chain AMMs that have deep stablecoin liquidity that they can route through, and have composability through something like Arch, or maybe there's an AMM that builds stablecoin liquidity on ICP that then all of these ICP apps can actually tap into to make it easier to get Bitcoin over. So I think that's really like the driving factor. We also have Bob on the line here. I pinged him to see if he was able and free. Look, we've been talking about Odin, meme coin launchpads, your competitors, Big Fun, FunkyBit, and basically 10 others that are building the pump fund of Bitcoin. But Bob, if you want to share some alpha with us, is this the be all end all for Odin? Is it just a meme coin pump fund launchpad? What's coming next? What should we be like looking forward to? And yeah, the on ramp problem of Bitcoin. I think a lot of people were waiting 6, 7 blocks sometimes to get their Bitcoin over. Is it now fixed to just one block confirmation? But yeah, like, would love to know if you can share some alpha on like what we should expect next from Odin Fund. Certainly, this is not one-stop shop and it's over and done. The development keeps on going, and so just wanted to get your take on what's coming next.
Yeah, awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
You just asked me like a million questions, and I'm probably going to forget half of them
All
and
right,
poorly answer
give
the
us
other
the alpha
three.
on
But
what's next for Odin
yeah,
Fund
yeah,
beyond a meme
yeah,
coin
yeah.
launchpad.
So I would say the biggest initial risk in building Odin Fund was technical risk. We weren't going to be able to pull it off in a good enough way, with good enough user experience, with good enough security. And I think we've executed on that. And I think that risk is substantially lowered by this point. I'll check that box. Product is viable. I think the next risk was launch. Could we support 10,000 users? Could we support lots of trading? Could we actually get the attention of the Bitcoin ecosystem? And I think that one is largely checked off as well. I'll check that box. I think the biggest box is the one that is yet to come, which is how do you take a platform like Odin Fund and compete with the likes of Pump Fund on Solana? And I think that is a massive challenge. I think it's a big hurdle, but I don't think it's impossible. There are a lot of things about the Solana trading experience that are not ideal. And there are a lot of things about Bitcoin that are just very right. And so I think there is an opportunity for a platform that has the user experience of Solana to actually be able to go and start to pull liquidity, cross chain liquidity into Bitcoin directly, have degens holding Bitcoin directly, trading with Bitcoin directly. But I'm not being naive as to the monumental nature of this particular problem. But this is the goal of Odin Fund. You should be able to come in with your soul, come in with your ETH, come in with your soul, your soul meme coins or your base meme coins, or come in with any meta protocol standard on Bitcoin. Theoretically, you could be able to do swap trading directly in Odin. You should be able to convert soul to Bitcoin. You should be able to trade with your Bitcoin. You should be able to go back out wherever you want. I think there are so many things that we just haven't done yet because it just takes time to build in a really good way. But I think we have very big, lofty goals here, but also totally aware that this is going to take a village or an army or whatever metaphor you want to use. It's probably closer to an army because of like how aggressive I think you need to be in the hockey stick growth stage of a company if you're going to really go get big market makers, big liquidity providers, tier one exchange listings for tokens. Like there's the money game that you have to play, I think. And right now we're building up strategic partners and looking to bring things together to really accelerate what we've done with Odin so far. Like I said, we've checked two of the three boxes, but the third one is the biggest one. And honestly, it's the only one that matters at this point. We want to grow the Bitcoin ecosystem. We want to grow the Runes ecosystem. We want, to bring users. We want to onboard more users, and we want to make this the place to be. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that because we're building on Bitcoin. And so anyway, this is my initial, we're just barely getting started here, and there's a whole ton of work to do.
Love it. Yeah, no, it sounds Odin Fun was scope number 1.0, and now the
Yes.
scope has 10x to be basically an AMM, a launchpad, a cross-chain tool, an interoperability, accessibility, degen portal, so to speak. Yeah, certainly looking forward to see that and future adoption of Rune's classic coins be embraced by Odin Fund in liquidity pools and the trading experience itself. Yeah, I think you'll keep our attention for quite a long time just based on how quickly you put together products and updates and fixes and changes.
Did you just call OG Runes Classic?
Yeah, that's my official terminology for them of the free and fair movement coins. Those I'm naming Runes Classic in the Bitcoin Classic terminology,
Uh,
or rather Ethereum Classic terminology.
I don't know if I'm feeling offended right now or if this is actually a good analogy. I can't decide. But
They're very much Runes 2.0 is the way that I'm seeing it.
we have a lot of Runes Tech going live very soon. We're already talking with initial liquidity providers about how we can bring in existing Runes tokens, and we're very excited to get the trading rolling. One of our strategies with the pump fund was to bootstrap liquidity. With these kinds of platforms, you live or die based on liquidity. And if you're making users bridge and they have to go through some other kinds of annoying processes, and then you don't have very much liquidity, you have this insurmountable, like, mountain hurdle for users where now they have to go out of their way, away from their normal selling patterns in order to take tokens away from what they normally trade, to put them in this new ecosystem with potentially a new wallet, with potentially a new token. And then you expect them to actually do that at size to power liquidity in your app. And I've tried to build apps like that before, and it doesn't work. The hurdles are too big. And so our strategy was, let's let people, we've had 2,300 tokens created so far in Odin Fund, and that's intentional. The goal was, let's let people create tokens as fast as they can click, and let's build up some initial liquidity, and then let's dramatically simplify the Bitcoin deposit or Runes deposit process, and then we can start to bring over existing Runes tokens into an environment that already has users interest, excitement. So this is like our fixing the chicken and the egg problem that any kind of marketplace or swap product has, which is just bringing in liquidity and users and traction.
Yeah, 100% agree. Centralized exchanges wouldn't have listings if they didn't have users. Users are the lifeblood of any sort of ecosystem application at the end of the day, and it's what gets people excited about bringing assets over. It provides the most amount of yields for capital providers and projects, and ultimately makes it much more fun when there's more people. Yeah, excited to see that troll box basically go off 24/7 once we have the next like 10x, 100x in users. Make it to some of these applications, and maybe at that point it becomes crazy and unsustainable, where it's just a massive feed of spam. But I think you've done enough to mitigate fake accounts, and maybe there's probably going to be other things that come up from like a technical
Yeah.
perspective that end up being solved at that point. But appreciate you coming up here. We're like 10 minutes usually, like I guess behind our usual show cutoff point. Sabanzi, let's wrap it up here. It's been an awesome show just talking about Bitcoin meme coins again after what seemed like 9 months of talking about it in an exciting way. While prices are going down, prices are most definitely not going up, but at least we're having fun in the DGen casino, and I think it's just gonna be much better over time.
Yo, wait, Mr. Joe, can I ask Bob a question real quick
Yeah,
about
Bless, go ahead.
real quick? So one of my favorite things about my new favorite salon things is providing liquidity for coins. I just think it's fun to just see your, even if price goes up or down, you get some fees and stuff. So it's a cool thing. Is it are people getting fees from providing liquidity on Odin.fun?
Yes. So all AMM trades, there's a 0.5% fee. 0.3 percentage points go to LPs, and 0.2% is the platform fee. That platform fee is then further divided depending on whether there's a referrer for the trader. So yes.
Oh, sick. All right. Thank you, man. Yeah, that's, dude, at the end of the day, number one way to get people bridged over to do anything is, yo, there's money over here. As long as people get to play with these toys and you can make money off it, I think liquidity, people that provide liquidity, even on Solana, there's a lot, but there's not as much as you'd imagine. There's people just doing it. They like it. Once they figure out like what it is, I think it's just, making money off of people trading is it's fun. So yeah, I think I'll mess around with it, see what happens. But yeah, thank you, Bob.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just on the fun side, if you haven't gone to Odin Fun and set your quick buy to quadruple 01 and then just smashed buy on a token, just do 20 purchases or something, you haven't really lived as a Bitcoiner until you've made 20 purchases in a minute. Some people have told me they can do 100 in a minute or they can do more. There's just this feeling of a kid in a candy store, like this glee or this joy, like this, I don't know what it is, but you got to go try it out and then you'll understand this beautiful feeling inside when you can just click like that and make 1 million purchases. Go try it out.
Dude, you'd love to hear it. Yeah, to Bless's point, check out Meteora, fork Meteora, and get that bid ask in. One-sided LP to DCA out. Man, that is the move. So thanks to everyone that tuned into the show. Bob for making Bitcoin fun again, and everyone that tunes in. The outro, I've been messing around with some music generation on Bitcoin. This is a beat block exploration. So this will be the tune out, but next Tuesday, Thursday, whatever day it is, I forget, or Thursday, next Thursday, we got Trump on the show talking about rate cuts. So it's going to be great. See you guys then. Run that back, run that back. See you on Thursday.